Beyond All-Star, at
Yes.
this midway point of the season, there's a lot of data we can kind of look at for this year. Surprises that are out there. Give me your biggest surprise for the first half of 2024-25.
So I'm actually going to make you start with both surprises and disappointments, because I think the two that you have chosen for both of those categories are the absolute right, genuine answers. So I came up with complimentary answers, but you do the genuine answer first.
All right, so my genuine answer for surprise is going to be Ime Udoka's Houston Rockets.
Absolutely,
who,
man.
are sitting
100%.
there in the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. I remember filling out my preseason award picks for SI, and like every fiber of my being wanted to pick Ime Udoka for Coach of the Year. But then I made out the standings that I had, predicted standings for SI, and I had the Rockets 13th. I'm like, you can't have the Coach of the Year on a team that finishes 13th. How do you do that? This team has surprised me in literally every possible way. They are an elite defensive team. Mm-hmm. He's somehow found a team that starts Alperen Sengun and has an aging Fred VanVleet still atop the defensive standings. Jalen Green as well, who's not known necessarily as a defensive player. They are a big-time defensive team. He has developed Thompson to becoming this big-time budding star at his position. They're just a great story. Like how they've gotten to this point is really remarkable to me.
No, it's insane. They're number 2 in the West.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. Anyone we all knew they were, quote, on the rise. We all talked about that. But anybody who thought they were going to be number 2 in the West, please show me that in writing, because I don't think anyone
I thought they had
it.
a chance of again, it was so tough making the Western Conference bracket up. I remember people were really bullish on the Spurs at the time. Like they can get to 40, 45 wins. Maybe they still can. Who knows? But like the Rockets just never, like, can they get like 500 a year ago was an impressive move. Like maybe they can get back to that level. Now they're like 50 plus win game pace. Like this
is why they're not interested in Jimmy Butler. Yeah. Like they have a team already. And I just want to say the stats that are like sort of telltale for me. They lead the league in rebounds per game. That's a hustle stat, right? That's a hungry stat. Best in the league in second chance points per game. That's a hungry stat and a hustle stat, right? Number 2 in fast break points. That is a hustle hungry stat. I look at those a lot. Those stat categories to me are very important when I look at what a team is doing, because it tells me how are you playing? How are you approaching every possession that you have? Being the best in the entire NBA in all of those stats, that is crazy impressive for a team that, again, the expectation was we just want you to do a little better than last year. And then Jalen Green, as you mentioned, we knew he was drafted where he was drafted for a reason.
He's having a great stretch right now too.
Last week against Memphis, and I want to point out, Memphis is a top 5 or top 6 defense, depending on the day you check. But they are no slouch in any direction as a defense. Jalen Green on them scored 42 points with a 72% field goal percentage in that game.
If he can, like the points I get, he's been putting those up for a while.
I know,
percentages. Like that's something to see. They're a great story. And they're going to be a fun team to watch over the next few weeks. I don't think they do anything. I believe what's being telegraphed out of Houston, that they want to see what they got come postseason time. I completely understand that.
Agree.
There's no need to do some kind of knee-jerk move. I am endlessly curious, though, about conversations between the Suns and Rockets, because the Rockets have a lot of that Phoenix draft capital, all because of all the machinations with the James Harden stuff and everything with Brooklyn. If the Suns continue to slip, and I don't see much hope for Phoenix at becoming anything more than a play-in-ish type of team, what do those conversations look like? Is there a deal out there? Like, is Kevin Durant on the table at some point? Do the Rockets, I know they want Devin Booker. I don't see Phoenix doing that with Devin Booker. But does Kevin Durant make Rafael Stone in that front office feel like they're a contender?
Well, okay, you are much more the expert on front office stuff than I am. That is not my area of expertise. I never quite understand why sometimes we do see teams trade each other back their draft picks. Because what is in the Rockets' best interest as they hold on to Phoenix's draft
for them
picks?
Not to make a burning joke, but for them to just completely implode. Like that's entirely their best interest.
And Phoenix especially, I know the large theory is, hey, if a team's doing a fire sale, and I'm using the language too,
it's just like, it's reflexive.
It's what we do.
Bad things when bad things happen.
When bad things happen, and I trust me, they're bad. That you strip the entire team down, and they're going to stink, and they're going to try to get the number race to the bottom and all that, and that's why whatever. In this case, like Phoenix is doing a fine job on its own as giving you some good draft picks down the road. And by the way, if you're the team that doesn't help them race to the bottom and someone else is, then great for that too. I wouldn't, if I'm the Rockets, I'm not trading those picks back. I'm betting on the Phoenix Suns to keep Phoenix Sunsing at the moment.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And plus, like, as much as I think Kevin Durant is going to be a baller until he's 40, if you're Houston, you probably want to try to find a 25 to 30-year-old star that does the things that Durant does, even though that's tough to do. Biggest disappointment. Or do you have a surprise?
I do. I have my surprise, my corollary surprise, because I do agree with you on the Rockets, but just want to bring the Pistons into the conversation. And you mentioned it a few times with Cade Cunningham. I mean, the other night, right? They beat the Rockets, so that's one. And that was a 19-point third quarter from Cade Cunningham, and that's just sort of an example of what he's been doing this season. This kid is 23 years old, and there were a lot of question marks around the league when they gave him the max contract that they gave him. And there's a lot of GMs who sort of, did in the polls and all the stuff came out and were like, no, that shouldn't have happened. He has lived up to every dollar of that contract, not just in what he's doing on the court, which is definitely enough, but you listen to guys on that Pistons team, and they will say, Cade went into the coach's office and argued for more playing time for me because he knows what I can do out on the floor. He has been such a support to his teammates, almost all of whom, or a lot of them, are significantly older than him. They do have some young guys too, of course. And then, you look at the stats at the halfway mark of the season for the Pistons. I wrote this down because it's pretty crazy. So just last season, the Pistons were 4-37 at the midway mark. They had that 28-game losing streak, set a record in the history of the NBA. And then
I think I actually won money when they broke the streak. I think it was like New Year's. I think right around then. Like I was convinced that they were going to.
Wasn't there some big like Wizards Pistons game where everyone was like, it has to happen,
and then
the Wizards won?
The Wizards won. Like, it was a couple of days later that I was like convinced like this is the day.
This is the day. Yeah. So that was last season. Right. So the last time they were above 500 this late in the season, and by this late, I'm talking about just the midway mark, right? That was 7 years ago. And the last time they were on pace to win 40 games or 42 games, 10 years ago. So they're doing things that this franchise has not done in a decade. And of course, it's been an inglorious decade. But I would just say that this team deserves, and they play in Detroit, and they don't get the country's attention all the time. They deserve your attention, not quite at Houston Rockets level, but they do deserve your attention as sort of a turnaround team that is doing pretty remarkable damn things.
Agree with everything you said about Cade. I talked a little bit about this with Ben Golliver last week, where one of the questions about Cade coming into this year was toughness. Like, can he play through stuff? Can he stay on the floor for more games? He's done that. Like, he has been durable. He has been excellent in every facet of the game. I love the Luka comparisons that he gets just with how he plays the game at his own pace. You can see that out there. Like, he's not him, Luka, Shea to a certain extent. They're not going to blow by you with some kind of Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook-like speed, but they're going to get to their spots, and when they do, they're tough to take out. But everything the Pistons have done in the offseason has led to this. JB Bickerstaff was a phenomenal hire. Couldn't be happier for JB to get
so
this.
Happy for him.
After, might be unfairly, and you can't say it's unfairly broomed out of Cleveland because they're playing great under Kenny, but getting this opportunity.
Look, if your ex-girlfriend has gone and married, and had this amazing lavish success, you want your own hot girl, right?
100%. I agree with that metaphor entirely. JB's been the right choice for that team. And the veterans they got were the right guys. Tobias Harris, in addition to having something left in the tank, is a good locker room guy to have on that team. They got a bunch of guys.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of guys.
The right veterans.
Yeah, so that Pistons team, they're a phenomenal story. I hope they, brought the Rockets. Last year, the Rockets, it was a huge win to get to 500. If the Pistons get to 500 and be in the mix for a playoff spot, major win for Detroit this year. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes during the playoffs. Which players are going off
and which ones are ice cold. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. With their pick'em game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats, like yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and so much more. Underdog is the only pick'em platform that puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep riding with your entry or tap the Win Now button to cash out whenever you want. Every dog deserves a chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose. This week on Underdog, I am looking at Lamar Jackson going higher than 2 touchdowns and Jamar Chase going higher than 9 catches. So Underdog is the best place to play Pick'em. Download the app, sign up with the promo code OPENFLOOR, and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code OPENFLOOR. Must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 years or older in Colorado for some games, 21 years or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado for some games. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpggambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
The flip side of that coin is the negatives, and that is the biggest disappointment. And I don't know how, Rachel, it can be anybody but the Philadelphia 76ers, who went out this past offseason on this spending spree, signed Paul George to a max contract, extended Joel Embiid for a couple of years, made these deals to get Caleb Martin and Eric Gordon. Everybody thought this was the year that Philadelphia takes that next step. And by next step, I mean get to a conference finals, which is where they haven't been in the Joel Embiid era. Not so much. They are 11 games under 500 as we tape this. Joel Embiid is officially out for 7 to 10 days with a knee problem. I think you and I would probably agree. I'm taking the long end of that one because that's the same knee that caused him all the problems in the offseason, that caused him to miss all of training camp, that caused him to miss, the first 3 weeks of the regular season, not banking on this being a 10-day type of injury. They're now at the point where they got to start thinking about, do we protect our lottery chances here? Their pick is top 6 protected to Oklahoma City of all teams, because of course it's going to Oklahoma City. Do they try to get to that tank range where they can finish like 10th and get a lottery pick for next year, which is a biblical disaster? I mean, this team spent so much money this offseason. They're by far the biggest disappointment to me.
Oh, it's crazy. And I will admit 100%, I will stand up there and take my medicine. I was one of the people this summer, and there were people who weren't, who foresaw more of this. And I was like, no, this is going to work great. The fit is perfect. And the fit, if these guys were healthy, I think it would be perfect. They've got depth. They went out and made some great sort of under the radar moves over the summer. I was very hopeful going into the season for the Sixers. And yes, of course, the red flags were the injuries, and people took them more seriously than I did. I thought, okay, well, now that they have each other, the burden on each other that they were carrying prior will be less, and so they'll be able to stay more healthy. Man, was I wrong. wrong. And it's funny, at Media Day, the Clippers, Norm Powell came out, and they asked him about Paul George leaving, of course.
Got mocked for this.
We all remember what he said. He said, it's addition by subtraction.
Not subtle.
And everybody was like, are you sure? Really? and he doubled down, and addition by subtraction. And guess what? Turns out in this case for this season, and I'm not willing to say overall, we still don't know what's going to happen in Philly for next year or the year after.
The year after might be wishful thinking, but you got
I think so, but I'm just not ready. I'm clinging to something there, and I'm not a Sixers fan, but I'm just saying I think that franchise and fans deserve to see some version of this play out. However, Norm Powell was right, at least for right now. There's more stories coming out about what was and wasn't working at the Clippers, and it wasn't just injuries, it turns out, and there were some other things going on. So, and Paul has said, and Paul remains one of my favorite players to watch, but he has said, I don't like doing some of the things they're asking me to do in Philly. I think when you have a team that's falling apart because the star player is hurt, you got to do everything they ask you to do. So that's a little concerning. And I just... I don't think you worry about saving face. I think you call it. Everybody else is saying it. So just do it. Do the strip down, do the race to the bottom, do the
But they can't
sitting
race
guys.
to the bottom. They got to race to the middle.
Well,
Like,
whatever
you mean
it
long
is.
term?
No.
Oh.
I mean this season.
like,
do
they-
everything
they-
you can to keep that pick.
Oh, yeah, because it's top. I'm blanking. I'm thinking
Yes.
outside that top.
No.
So, yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. Just this season. Okay? Lose all the games. And maybe it's not by trading away guys you really like because you have them under contract for next year. Maybe it's just by, Joel, that injury that we're already saying could be 2 weeks. Maybe it's 3 weeks. Paul, maybe you take those 3 games off. Like, Tyrese, you've been carrying such a big load. His numbers are way down, I think, because of the burden that he's had. Let's give you some back-to-backs off. Let's give you whatever. I just think that you want to do everything you can to keep that pick because, to your point, they now have to future cast more than they thought they did. They thought, like, man, this season's going to be great. We're going to be title contenders. We can even possibly be title contenders for the next season. And what happens in the future is the future because you don't get many shots to be a title contender with 2, like, legit, absolute all-stars leading your team. That was all true. Since it looks like Joel's body is breaking down way, we had plenty of flags, but just even earlier than those flags indicated, you got to worry about your future. And I would not send that draft pick to Oklahoma City if I could.
Can you believe that the season that started like 3 months ago with Philadelphia at the tip of everybody's tongue as a potential contender, we're in mid-January and we're talking about them chasing Cooper Flag. Like, this is where we are with the 76ers.
The Sixers have had 25 starting lineups in 40 games. That's not an excuse. There's a lot of problems there. But it doesn't help. And it's certainly been a factor. If Joel Embiid was healthy and playing in all those games, or at least 30 of the 40, 35 of the 40 games or whatever it was, they would be higher in the standings. You can't argue me that they wouldn't. It's a thing.
Here's the thing. Daryl Morey and I fight somewhat often. Not super. We haven't fought much this year. I don't quibble with him over signing Paul George. They had the $40 million in cap space, and it had to be spent. Otherwise, they signed Tyrese Maxey, a lot of the cap space goes away. It was now or never for the 76ers. And look, Paul George was coming off a great year with the Clippers. He was still in the prime of his career. He was durable last year. He was an all-star. They needed somebody that seemed like an upgrade from Tobias Harris. I don't blame him at all for doing that. Where I fault him is giving Joel Embiid an extension when he didn't have to. Like, they have tied themselves now to Joel for the next 4.5 years by giving him that multi-year extension this offseason with 2 years left on his contract. Like, it's wild.
Did they do that after he had that meniscus surgery? They must have.
They did it between, I think it officially came out between the Olympics and the.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course then.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you're giving a guy who is your franchise.
Yes.
But you're giving a guy a multi-year extension when he already has multiple years left on his contract, and he's got a history of injuries. Like, I don't get the rationale there. Like, you're not this super small market that you have to tie these guys up long-term or else. Like, and especially with a guy now in his 30s that's injury-prone, why would you do it? Because now this is what you got. Like, this is it. And I don't know. I'm less optimistic about the multi-year future of the 76ers than you are. Like,
no, I mean, I'm just grasping, man. I'm grasping at straws. I'm trying.
Oh. All right, so that's my disappointment. What is your biggest disappointment?
Okay, so I agree that the Sixers are the biggest disappointment. So once again, I'm going to compliment your excellent first choice by saying, for me, it has been probably the secondary disappointment has been Minnesota. And I am not saying they are in the position the Sixers are. They have had some flashes of good things lately, and they could end the season in the second half in a much better position than they are now. But we are talking about disappointments in the first half of the season. And I covered that Western Conference Finals and watched that team and thought, man, this team is solid. And they're going to be in the mix and in the conversation for a long time. And we all know what a rock star Anthony Edwards is, and he's just going to get better. He still has room to get better, which is crazy of how well he plays. So I was really looking for them to have a great first half of the season. Cat being traded away, I knew was for money. We talked about it at the time, but I thought the trade was even enough that I thought, okay, they're going to be okay. And frankly, it gives some room for some players, gives Nabries more a chance. It gives some of the other guys a little bit more of a chance to blossom, and maybe, not in any way addition by subtraction, but the subtraction maybe didn't have to be as hard as maybe it would in a certain situation. And they haven't done it. They just haven't done it. And, the Wolves are on pace to win 13 fewer games than they did last season. That is a crazy number. And again, maybe it'll get better, but come on. It still looks like it would take a fairy godmother to get them back to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Much less build on that. And then Julius Randle.
Hasn't worked out.
And that to me is a fit thing. I know people love to blame him specifically, but I am a big believer that the top 10% of the guys in the league would be great no matter what. People have heard me say this for a decade. The bottom 10% would be bad no matter what, no matter wherever they were. The middle 80%, I think, is so largely about fit, and I think he is one of those players. And the fit is not right there. It's not right.
No, it's not. His efficiency numbers are not good. And they can't shoot threes. Like they can't, and you're not going to win in today's NBA if you can't shoot threes. That trade's cost them, and I was adamantly against that. From the very beginning. I think I wrote it and we talked about it. I was not for it, and I don't know how they're going to be able to turn it around to get back to that level they were last year.
But they also, it sounds like, didn't have the money to keep that team together, and so I don't know, or not have the money because.
You all have the money.
They all have the money, but that they were not willing to spend the money.
And we don't need to go back down this rabbit hole, but like again, like if you have a team that's in the conference finals, like you keep it together.
You just keep.
No
I
matter
agree.
No matter what the ultimate cost